The wind howled through the trees, sending a shiver down my spine as I approached the cabin in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. It was a dilapidated, long-forgotten structure, standing alone amidst a sea of towering pines. I had come here seeking solitude, but what I found was something far more sinister. Inside, the cabin was frozen in time, covered in a thick layer of dust and decay. The air was heavy with the scent of rot, and the only light came from the feeble rays of the setting sun. I shivered as I set my bag down, my breath visible in the frigid air. As I explored the cabin, I stumbled upon a hidden trapdoor beneath a worn-out rug. Curiosity got the better of me, and I pried it open, revealing a dark, narrow staircase leading down into the abyss. My heart raced, but I couldn't resist the urge to descend into the unknown. The staircase led to a dimly lit underground chamber, adorned with eerie symbols scrawled on the walls. In the center of the room, I saw a gruesome sight, a blood-soaked altar surrounded by candles, a lifeless body sprawled upon it. Panic surged through me, and I stumbled back, my mind racing with fear. I couldn't escape the realization that I had stumbled upon a murder scene, one that had been carefully hidden away for years. But I was not alone in that chamber. From the shadows emerged a figure, clad in tattered robes, their face obscured by darkness. A wicked, guttural laughter filled the air as they approached me. Terrified, I turned to flee, but the door slammed shut, trapping me with the malevolent presence. The figure's voice, icy and filled with malice, whispered, "You shouldn't have come here, intruder." I was paralyzed with fear as the figure advanced, a glint of steel in their hand. In that harrowing moment, I realized that I was not the first to seek shelter in this cabin, and I would not be the last. The cabin in the Rocky Mountains held a dreadful secret, one that I was about to become a part of, forever lost in the darkness. The blade in the figure's hand gleamed menacingly as they approached, their every step echoing ominously in the chamber. Panic coursed through my veins, and I desperately scanned the room for an escape, but there was none. I was trapped in this nightmarish underground chamber, at the mercy of this sinister being. With each step, the figure's laughter grew louder, a twisted symphony of madness that filled my ears. They reached out with their blood-stained hand, their fingers curling around my throat like a vice. I gasped for air, my vision swimming as the room spun around me. As my consciousness waned, a flicker of my survival instinct ignited. With every ounce of strength left in me, I brought my knee up with all my might, catching my assailant off guard. They released their grip, and I staggered backward, gasping for breath. In the dim light, I saw an opportunity to defend myself. I grabbed a nearby candlestick and swung it with all my might, striking the figure on their arm. They let out a guttural scream of pain, dropping the blade. With newfound determination, I made a break for the hidden staircase, racing up the steps, fueled by terror and adrenaline. Behind me, the figure pursued, but their injured arms slowed them down. I burst through the trapdoor and slammed it shut, sealing them in the dark chamber below. Gasping for air, I fled from the cabin, the frigid night air biting at my skin. As I ran through the forest, I heard the figure's haunting laughter echoing in the distance. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of a nearby ranger station and reported what I had seen. When the authorities arrived at the cabin, they found the underground chamber, but the figure was nowhere to be found. To this day, the mystery of the cabin in the Rocky Mountains haunts my nightmares. I survived, but I will never forget the malevolent presence I encountered in that forsaken place. Some secrets are better left undisturbed, and I can only hope that the darkness I unleashed remains hidden deep beneath the earth, never to be unleashed again. The Siberian wilderness stretched out as far as the eye could see, a vast expanse of untamed forest and chilling isolation. Our campfire crackled, casting eerie shadows that danced across the trees as the frigid night closed in around us. We huddled close for warmth, sharing stories to ward off the creeping sense of unease. That evening, our laughter was abruptly silenced by a distant, bone-chilling roar that sent shivers down our spines. My heart raced as I realized the terrifying truth. We were not alone in these unforgiving woods. As the campfire dwindled, a pair of glowing, malevolent eyes emerged from the darkness. It was a monstrous bear, colossal and hulking, like a nightmare brought to life. Its fur was matted with dried blood, and its teeth gleamed wickedly in the moonlight. Panic rippled through the camp as we fumbled for weapons, but the bear was upon us before we could react. It attacked with a fury that defied nature itself, slashing and biting with brutal efficiency. My companions fell one by one, their screams echoing through the Siberian night. I managed to scramble into a nearby tent, zipping it shut just in time to escape the bear's ravenous fury. Inside, I trembled in terror, listening to the sounds of my friend's agonizing demise. The bear circled the camp, its predatory instincts finely honed. Hours passed like a never-ending nightmare, the bear's relentless presence a constant threat. As dawn broke, the creature finally retreated into the depths of the forest, leaving behind a gruesome tableau of carnage. I emerged from the tent, a lone survivor in a blood-soaked camp. My heart ached for my fallen companions, but I knew I had to make it out of this Siberian nightmare alive. The bear's haunting roars still echoed in the distance, a chilling reminder that the wilderness held secrets more terrifying than we could ever imagine. The Appalachian woods were alive with the rustling of leaves and the symphony of chirping crickets as I embarked on a solo hiking trip. I relished the solitude, but little did I know I was not alone. On the second day, I noticed subtle signs that someone had been following me. Broken twigs, faint footprints, and a lingering feeling of unease all pointed to an unwelcome presence. My heart quickened, and I tried to dismiss my paranoia as an overactive imagination. That night, as I pitched my tent deep in the forest, the unease intensified. An eerie sensation swept over me, as though invisible eyes were watching from the shadows. I scanned the darkness with my flashlight, revealing nothing but trees. With each passing day, the feeling of being pursued grew stronger. I quickened my pace, hoping to shake off whoever was tailing me. But they were persistent, always maintaining a distance, just out of sight. One evening, I glimpsed a figure in my peripheral vision, fleeting and indistinct. Panic surged through me and I called out, demanding they reveal themselves. There was no response, only the sound of leaves crunching underfoot as they retreated into the darkness. I decided to cut my trip short, fearing for my safety. As I hurried back towards civilization, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My unease turned into terror when, on the final day, I found a chilling message scrawled on a tree. "I'm closer than you think." The realization hit me like a sledgehammer. I was being stalked by an unknown predator, and I was completely at their mercy. With each step, I couldn't help but wonder if this hike would be my last, and if the Appalachian woods would become my final resting place. I pushed forward, desperate to escape the clutches of my relentless stalker. But the forest, once a source of tranquility, had transformed into a labyrinth of dread, where every shadow concealed a potential threat. As I descended deeper into the Appalachian wilderness, the sense of isolation weighed heavily on me. My stalker's presence became more palpable, the feeling of being hunted never fading. With each passing day, the trail grew more treacherous, and my paranoia gnawed at my sanity. One evening, a relentless downpour forced me to seek shelter in a secluded cave. I huddled in the darkness, my heart pounding with fear. It was then that I heard it, the distant sound of footsteps echoing through the cave's entrance. My breath caught in my throat as the stalker entered the cave, silhouetted against the storm outside. Their face was obscured by a hood, and they moved with an unsettling silence. The cave became a claustrophobic trap, and I had no escape. The stalker drew closer, and I knew I had to act. With trembling hands, I grabbed a rock, my only means of defense. As they approached, I lunged, striking them with all my might. There was a sharp cry of pain, and they staggered back, their hood falling to reveal a face twisted with rage. I seized the opportunity and bolted from the cave, rain pelting down on me as I sprinted through the forest. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart threatening to burst from my chest. I didn't dare look back, fearing that the stalker was still in pursuit. Hours later, I reached a ranger station and reported the horrifying ordeal. The authorities launched a search for the stalker, but they were never found. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. The Appalachian woods, once a place of serenity and solitude, had become a haunting nightmare. The memory of that relentless pursuit still haunts me, a chilling reminder that danger can lurk in the most remote corners of the world, waiting to strike when you least expect it.